so once I have sewn my sides and my bottom here, I'm going to make the bottom of my bag. So the bottom of my bag is about 2 or 3 inches wide, and so I'm going to basically take, this is how we're going to do a squared off corner. So we've got, here's the top of your, where you've sewn, go down to one of the bottom corners here. And you're going to kind of grab it and pull it apart. So you can go through and pull those layers apart so that it looks like this. And so we're going to make sure that that seam here on one from the side lines up with the seam on the bottom there. And so you can kind of see the seam there, they line up there. And so we're going to go down and we're going to go where it's going to be, end up being about 2 inches or so across. And so we're going to go through, and that's going to be about there-ish or so. So I'm going to sew right across there. So I've got it kind of marked with my finger there. And we're going to basically take the sewing machine, we're going to go right there, and we're going to just sew across that. So it's basically kind of pulling that triangle there, so that, okay, and then we're going to do that to the other corner as well. So we're going to go to the other bottom corner, trim this up, okay, and so our other bottom corner, we're going to pull one side away from the other, and we're going to flatten it out, and we're going to make sure that our bottom and our side seams line up. You can kind of wiggle that around a little bit so that lines up, and we're going to measure to where we were, about there. And so then we're going to sew across this way again. You can mark this if you want. I'm being lazy and I'm just kind of holding it with my thumb. But you could definitely mark it with a pen, mark it with a, if you have like a fabric marker or anything like that, you can do that. And if you end up having some extra little threads, it's okay, because most of this is going to get sewn in there. So now what we're going to do, so we have this extra little thing there, we're going to cut across that. We're going to go back to our other corner, and we're going to cut across that too. All right, and so now you have kind of, you can see you have a squared off bottom here, and so then that's going to make your bottom fit in a little bit more securely. You've got a squared off bottom for your bag. And so now we're going to go on to the next step. Okay, so the next step is to iron, and I hate ironing, but it does serve a purpose in this. I pretty much only iron with craft projects, but that's, yeah. So you can kind of see there's our squared off bottom. You can see this a little bit better in this video here. And so we are going to, so we have our pockets still on the inside because that's going to be that, and we're going to fold out like we're going to do our little top fold under for our hem. And so we're going to iron this in place. That way it'll be easier to sew it to our bag when it's time for that. So we're just going to go through and we're going to iron. Tuck some more. It doesn't have to be perfect. You just basically want to get this so that you kind of know where you're going to, where your top edge is folded down, because then this is going to be sewn to the top of the bag, and it's going to just make it so much easier if you have this folded down and you're not trying to like keep it in place and all that. So it's easier to just iron down this right here. I pretty much iron as little as possible, even with craft projects, but like I said, this makes this a lot easier. So now we have our top edge folded down, ironed like that, and we are also going to iron our straps. So for our straps, we're going to basically fold under, and then we're going to be sewing this to, like this raw side to the strap. And so we're going to just kind of fold down both sides. Just try to do it as evenly as you can, and then just iron that into place, and we'll end up sewing that. But that will make it much easier to sew this to the straps. So just kind of go through, fold it that way. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect, but this is going to hold down your seam there so that it'll be easier to sew this to the straps. And so we're going to go through and do this to both straps, and then we will get back to sewing. Okay, so now we're going to sew our liner and our strap liner to our bag. So these are the last few steps. So basically we're going to take, so where we folded in that, we're going to put our raw edges against the inside of the strap of our bag so we can see the inside of our bag here. Just make sure that stays down just a couple inches below there. And then we're just going to kind of place it along there, clip it in place, and just kind of go through. You can kind of clip whichever side, both sides. I kind of go back and forth with this. And you're just going to kind of place this gently along your strap there. Don't stretch your strap because you don't want it to be stretched out, but this is going to be, this is actually, because I'm using a woven fabric, this is going to keep your bag straps from stretching out. So when you use it, it's not going to get super stretched out. So we're going to kind of keep gently going along the inside of that strap there and keep placing our clips and going through. And just make sure it's kind of centered on your strap. You don't want the fabric to be showing way outside of the yarn, and doing that. And so we get back, and so we have just about the same amount on the inside here. Don't worry about that. When you sew your lining on, that's just going to get tucked in there. And so that's one nice thing is when we're sewing it like this, then everything kind of gets tucked in and you don't really have to sew these ends to make sure that they're good. So now we're just going to sew down one side and then the other side and sew this strap into place. So I'm just sewing the strap straight to the yarn here. And initially I wasn't sure how my machine would do with sewing the yarn and the fabric and everything, but it actually does really, really well. My machine doesn't typically like thick things, but it does pretty well with this. And so this just makes it pretty quick to just sew it straight with your machine there. Okay, so I have the fabric sewn onto my straps, and so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to be putting the lining in. So I'm going to mark where the sides of my bags are, so I'm going to kind of put the straps there. I'm going to just put a little clip at the side there, and I'm going to go to the other side. I'm going to kind of line up my straps so that I can kind of see where the edge is. And I'm going to put a little clip there. Okay, so then I'm going to take my bag and I'm going to see where my sides are. You can see my sides, and just take this bag and tuck it down into your crochet bag. So I'm going to go here and say, okay, I've got my little side edge there where I'd sewn, and I'm going to clip that to that. I'm going to go to my other side. And I'm going to find my clip, and I'm going to hold this there and clip that there. And then I'm going to kind of just pull this and find the middle here. Just do a couple more clips just to kind of make sure that that stays in place. So I'm going to kind of clip here, pull this up. And you shouldn't have to stretch your bag. It should be pretty good. Everything should be pretty even if you measured well. And I'm going to make sure when I sew, I'm going to be tucking down my little strap there, and I'm going to sew basically over the edge of that strap. And also, one nice thing is because you're sewing in kind of all of the inside there, you don't have to weave in your ends from, like, if you change color on the bag or anything like that, you don't have to weave in those ends because they're just going to be inside between the lining and the bag. And so I'm also going to just kind of sew that down there, clip that. But yeah, so it's really nice because I hate weaving in ends, and so anything I can do to get away from that. So you've got that clipped, and then you're just basically going to sew around the top. And like I said, make sure you sew over those straps and kind of keep those ends tucked in there, and just sew over that, and you will sew around the top there. Okay, and so this is the finished tote bag. So we have it lined, and so you can kind of see the pockets in there, everything. It looks good. And so yeah, I just finished sewing around the top there, sewed the straps, and this will keep it from stretching. And so this is a little bit smaller version of the beach tote that I made, but this, I'm going to be doing a tutorial for how to actually make the bag at some point soon, but I just kind of made up this pattern. So, but this tutorial for lining the bag can work for multiple different styles. You know, if you have something that's similar style or whatever, it'll work, because it's mostly just kind of based on your measurements, and it kind of shows you the general lining of it. So I love how this turned out. I'm going to be giving this to my son's teacher for end of the year gift, because she has been absolutely amazing this year. And with the pockets inside, I'm going to fill it with like some pins and some candy probably, Amazon gift card, all that stuff, because she deserves everything because she has been fabulous this year. But yeah, so this is what this tote bag turned out to be, and this is how you line it. So have a good day.